Hello, my name's Blossoms and welcome to another Genshin Impact video. And today I'm going to be showing you guys my support Bennett build. I actually realized that I made my Bennett build that I personally like to do, which is a 4-piece Crimson Witch set. And I really like doing that one around, but it does operate a little bit more as a support DPS rather than a full support role. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be a healer Bennett. Bennett already heals insane on his own. This is going to be more focused around augmenting your teammates' attacks, as well as just kind of providing his burst as often as possible. And that's kind of the focus around this particular build, rather than trying to keep him on the field and deal a pretty good amount of damage. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and take a look at his talents. I do have his normal attack at 6, his Passion Overload at 6, and his Fantastic Voyage at 6. This is 7 right now because I have Tartaglia in the party, so he's getting a +1. Now, the Fantastic Voyage is definitely the most important one here. I would have it higher, however, I have not ascended him again yet. And maybe in the future when I get a bit more resources and I have the luxury to, I will ascend him there, and then I'll get his Fantastic Voyage up even more, as this is definitely the most important thing. It does increase your attack bonus ratio as you go up. You see mine is 90% here, which is pretty darn insane. And it also increases your healing and skill damage and whatnot. So you see that I'm getting some pretty solid healing here and a better attack bonus damage ratio as I level this up. Now, one other important thing to note here is I do have him at C2. You do get a little bit of an increase here on the attack on his C1. It's definitely his most valuable, so definitely don't skip out on that one. It's really strong. So if you aren't getting the same numbers as me and you have C0, that's probably why. But you can still make this build work absolutely fine for him, even if you have him at C0. I also have C2, and this one is very nice. It isn't insane or anything, but it's if his HP is below 70%, he gets extra energy recharge, which is incredibly valuable and is just going to ensure that you get that ult even faster. So moving on to the artifacts, I'm sure many of you could have guessed, but yes, we're doing the 4-piece Noblesse Oblige. If you're doing a support Bennett, I've got to say this has to be the best set. This is increasing the damage you do with your ult, which are going to be popping on cooldown constantly, and it gives an increase of attack of 20% for 12 seconds. This is pretty darn strong. It lasts for 12 seconds, and if you've been paying attention, his Fantastic Voyage also lasts 12 seconds, so you know for a fact that it is keeping up as long as the thumb is on the ground, so that's very important to know. So if you're popping this off of cooldown, you're only having a 3-second downtime on the extra 20% attack that you're giving your teammates. But looking into the actual artifacts themselves here, you might be wondering about my Noblesse Oblige set. Yes, I'm using my absolutely insane feather that gives me good crit rate and crit damage, but it's also got energy recharge, which is going to be one of the more important factors for the support Bennett, as you're going to want to be focusing on your energy recharge. Of course, we'll go over all of my final tallies of stats right after this, but we're going to talk about the initial artifacts first. I also have this flower, and it's got HP percent, crit damage, and energy recharge, and I want to note here not to knock the HP percent, as his healing does scale off of his max HP, so the HP percent does matter at least a little bit here. So if you do get HP percent, I wouldn't fret about it too much. You're just going to be increasing the healing aspect to him, which you definitely can't hurt to have, you know what I mean? And as I said, we are also focusing on the energy recharge. That is going to be very important here to ensure that you are popping his ult off of cooldown, which isn't too hard, but the more energy recharge, the better in my opinion, as long as you're still maintaining some solid other substats. Now for my pocket watch here, I have attack percent, and that's very important, as you're going to just want to have better attack on him. It's going to make sure that the E you're doing to fill up his ult and his ult are doing more damage. And you see I have energy recharge in here, as well as a little bit of elemental mastery, which does help his damage if you do get those little bits of elemental mastery. And it also gives him some crit rate, which is important because you do want to try and hit crits with him if possible, as that's obviously just going to be better damage. Now for his goblet here, you're going to want pyro damage bonus. This isn't the most ideal goblet. I do have attack percent here, which I definitely can't complain about. Definitely something he wants to have. His ult does scale off of his base attack for the attack that you gain on your other characters, so you don't have to worry about actual attack percent that much, but attack percent definitely doesn't hurt because it's going to be guaranteeing that he's dealing more damage when he's on the field. That way you're not losing any, and that's very important, especially when you're focusing on the more support side of Bennett rather than him being a sub DPS. Having attack percent definitely helps because the small amount of times that he will be on the field, he will be proccing pyro on an opponent and trying to deal damage. So having good crit rate, crit damage, attack percent, and a little bit of elemental mastery definitely helps a bunch, as long as you can still maintain some solid energy recharge as well. And for the mask here, I actually don't have the ideal mask. I have crit damage right now. I would prefer to have crit rate because my crit rate is a little low, and maybe have like a crit damage substat on that. But this is definitely doing fine for me, as it gives him some elemental mastery, gives him a little flat attack, and gives him some attack percent as well, which is also important because, as we just mentioned, attack percent can be valuable for Bennett, even as a support. And then the flat HP here isn't too bad, definitely does help the healing just a smidge, but not anything significantly. As for weapons for Bennett, you're going to want to have anything with an energy recharge substat, and if you have the Skyward Blade, which is a 5-star, then this is probably going to be the best in slot for him, as due to the fact that it's a 5-star, it has a higher base attack than 4 stars, which is very valuable on Bennett because, as I mentioned before, his burst scales off of his base attack, which is very important, as your weapon does increase your base attack stat. So that's very important to know. So the 5-star is definitely going to be your best option, especially ones with energy recharge substat. You basically need an energy recharge substat on him. Even if you're using him as a sub DPS, I would 100% recommend an energy recharge substat on him. This is what I use even when I am using him as a sub DPS, so I definitely can't say, you know, it's a bad option. But you're like, hey, I'm not lucky, I don't have a 5-star weapon, so that's totally fine, I've got you. The Festering Desire is actually probably one of the best weapons for Bennett, period. It increases his elemental skill damage, which you're going to be doing a lot since it only has a 5-second cooldown and a 2.5-second cooldown in his elemental burst, which is pretty darn nuts. Or you could go with something like the Sacrificial Sword. That's definitely not going to hurt you either. You could go something like Favonius Sword. I wouldn't recommend it unless you can guarantee yourself that you have a high crit rate, then maybe that will be worth it. And that would also enhance the support aspect to him, because then he'll be providing energy for your team as well. However, I would say the Skyward Blade is definitely still best in slot, second being Festering Desire. And then you could probably put Sacrificial and Favonius Sword on the same level there. I wouldn't really recommend any other swords, as the energy recharge substat is that valuable, and these do provide that for you, which is very important. In terms of alternatives for support Bennett, you could go something like a 2-piece of the Maiden's Beloved, but I really wouldn't recommend it. As I said, his healing is already amazing without it, so you really don't need this, especially if you have a couple little bit of HP percent on him. Like, you're definitely not going to be worrying about it. I just can't say that this is worth it. If you are really worried about his healing in some capacity, then forego the crit damage or crit rate helmet and go for a healing bonus helmet, as that's probably going to be a better option for you, rather than trying to give him that Maiden's Beloved set, as the 4-piece Noblesse here is just going to be much more valuable to your team. So those are probably going to be the best weapon choices and artifact choices for Bennett. Now let's go ahead and take a look at my actual stats here. You see you have 1400 attack. This obviously isn't too ideal. I would like to get it up to at least 1600, and I'm probably going to be able to do that once I get his level up a little bit and maybe refine his artifacts a bit. But for now, this is what we're going to have to deal with. And I do have some pretty decent crit rate here, and I've got really solid crit damage at 135%, but obviously this isn't the good 2-to-1 ratio that you want to shoot for with crit rate and crit damage. So I definitely need to get my crit rate up, and I just need to farm better artifacts for that. So do keep that in mind. The elemental mastery here is definitely something that I'm not ignoring, because if I am using other elemented characters, then him using his E constantly to generate his own energy is just going to be doing that much more damage when it causes a proc of whatever that is. Now, I also wanted to mention here, check out the energy recharge. I told you it was important. I've got 190% energy recharge, so I get his ult on cooldown guaranteed, and I don't necessarily have to worry too much about putting him on the field to use his E. And I kind of got here by accident, just using the sword and having some decent energy recharge substats. I really didn't even try to focus on it too much. So as long as you're following, you know, needing an energy recharge sword and getting a couple of the substats there, you should be a-okay on energy recharge and should be able to hit 170% just fine. And that's kind of where you probably want to be at a minimum. Then you'll notice here, I've got the pyro damage bonus here at 38.7%. Definitely nothing too crazy, but something I can't say is bad either. I do like this a bit higher. As I said, I run a support DPS type of Bennett with the Crimson Witch set, and then that bumps this up to around the 50 range, which I like a bit better, and I try to get a little bit more elemental mastery on him, and I like that a bit more. But since this is a support Bennett, you really don't need to worry about how much damage he's going to be doing, because the main focus is just how much attack he's going to be giving your team, and we're actually going to check that out right now. Alright, so we're going to be popping into the Pyro Regisvine here, and I'm going to show you guys the difference between the Noblesse set bonus and not having the Noblesse set bonus, and a couple different aspects of that. We're just going to be using the Pyro Regisvine here kind of as a stick to gain energy from, so we're not really worried about killing him or anything. At least I'm not, so don't worry about it too much. We've got Bennett's bonus here. Let's see if we can get this guy to calm down. And we'll toss that Q there. You see Bennett's attack has gone up substantially from the 1400 he had before. And Tartaglia here has gained a little bit, but not as much as you would think. But that's because he's not in the ult yet. You saw he gained about 100 there from the Noblesse set. And then he gained an additional 700 from Bennett's actual ult there. And I do want to note here that people like Albedo and Noelle, the defense-centered characters, are going to gain a lot more from the Noblesse set bonus, as I don't really have any attack percent on Albedo, so gaining 20% for him is huge. You see he gained 200 attack there. I'll show you guys afterward his attack because it was 1000, but it's 1200 now. And we'll go ahead and pop him in that ult, and we'll see just how much attack he has now. He has 1900 on an Albedo, which I think is kind of hilarious. But you can see how that's really going to be helping your damage out a lot, especially if you have supports like Noelle or Albedo or even Jinyon, who could use a little bit boost of attack because you might have focused a little bit into their defense aspects. So that is something you definitely want to keep in mind. And then just to reiterate, this is what Albedo's attack looks like normally. I didn't get a chance to show you guys beforehand, but yeah, I see he was 1000 and he gained 200 from the 20% there, while Child only gained about 100. So that's definitely important to note because Albedo doesn't really have any attack percent on him. So when you actually do give him attack percent, he gains a little bit more than somebody like Tartaglia, who has a ton of attack percent on him. Right now we're going to be showing what it's like without the 4-piece. I just put on a random crit damage helmet. Nothing too much has changed. He's gained a little bit more energy recharge as if he didn't have enough already. But I'm just kind of going to show you guys the difference between the buffs here. Trying to farm some ults off this guy. Gotta give him a couple swipes here. We've got plenty of energy recharge to go ahead and get this in 3 swipes. And alright, we'll go ahead and bust the Q down. And you'll see Tartaglia here. Has gained a good amount of attack, don't get me wrong, but he's definitely less than we had before. Bennett gained a little bit, but not as much as before either. Albedo hasn't gained anything because he hasn't stepped in the circle yet. But now we put him in the circle and you see he's at 1700, so he's definitely not gaining as much as he was before. Like he had 1900 before because of the Noblesse set there. So you can see how that can really start to affect your damage and just how much that could really affect your team in terms of how much damage they're doing. It's same with Fischl. She was at 1300 before, now she's at 2100. So that's very good, but it could be even better if you have that 4-piece Noblesse set. Anyway, that's going to be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed my support Bennett build here, as well as my thoughts on the Noblesse set and why I think it's best for him. Let me know what you thought of the video. Please leave a like and comment below. I'd love to see what you guys have to say about support Bennett below there. It also helps the video, and I truly appreciate the support. But anyway, that's going to be it for today. My name is Blossoms, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Peace.